Good afternoon. My name is Hier. I'm both the Senior Policy Advisor and the Rules Coordinator here at the Building Codes Division. I want to thank you all very much for taking the time to join us today to discuss rulemaking relating to House Bill 2415. This meeting is being recorded to maintain a record of the advice provided today. There is an agenda for the meeting that was provided in advance. If you do not have access to this agenda today, myself and Tyler Glaze, policy analyst for the division, will be providing the background in advance of the discussion on each issue. In addition, the agenda is available on the division's website, and I'll ask Laura or Melissa to post a link to that agenda in the chat for this meeting. This is the first Rulemaking Advisory Committee meeting on this bill. As we work to develop minimum standards, we will continue to engage our stakeholders in the process. We hope that you will be able to join us at future meetings for the Rulemaking Advisory Committee meetings, and also hope to continue to expand the participants in this process. We look forward to hearing the feedback and ideas of our stakeholders to assist in the implementation of this bill. I know some of you are used to our board meetings that are more formal and require motions. We encourage participants, this is a less formal process, and we encourage participants to have an open discussion to provide feedback, information, and ideas. Motions are not required at this meeting. Since we are in a virtual format with a large number of participants, I'm going to ask that folks on the computer use the raise hand function during the meeting. I will attempt to call on folks in the order I see hands raised. That said, I do understand some people may be on the phone or there could be difficulty in using that feature. So if necessary, feel free to speak up and jump in on the conversation where you see fit. As we go along, if you have any advice about fiscal impacts, we do rely on that when we go to file rules with the Secretary of State. Please keep that in mind as we discuss options. We want to know any costs or savings to you and the people you represent or others. Since this is a virtual meeting, please keep in mind that your microphone will pick up background noises and conversations. You can use mute to prevent the background noises when you're not wanting to speak at the meeting. If you are on the phone, please do not place us on hold because we do pick up background music and cannot turn that off. If you do need to disconnect, you can feel free to rejoin the meeting at any time. To start, we would like to know who is present at the meeting today. I've introduced myself, Hier. I'm going to run through some additional BCD staff who I know are here and may be participating today. First, we have, I believe I saw Alana Cox was able to join us, the BCD's administrator, so I'll give her a chance to say hello and test her microphone out.
Hi, good afternoon. It's great to see so many people participating today.
Thank you. Next, we have Selena Patterson, manager of e-permitting. Selena, if you want to say hello.
Hi there. I apologize I can't get my camera to work, but I'm happy to be participating today.
And then we also have Tyler Glaze, policy analyst, who's going to help me facilitate the meeting. Tyler, if you can say hello.
Hello, everyone. And much like Selena, my camera is refusing to work with Zoom for whatever reason, but please do not take that as any sort of slight on my behalf. So thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.
And then we may have some additional BCD staff who are observing the meeting or assisting with recording. To save on time, I'm going to skip going through all of them who may be present to simply observe the meeting. If anybody's here who anticipates participating, let us know as we go through the RSVP list and the additional list of people who may be here. So I do have a list of people who RSVP'd. I tried to see people as they jumped in the meeting. So I'm going to run through who I caught, and I do apologize that I did not catch everybody because I have 2 pages of pictures on my Zoom screen. So I tried to get who I could to mark, but I think we have Jonathan Belkima.
I'm Jonathan Belkima with the City of Albany. I'm the building official for the city.
Great, thank you and welcome. And I do apologize if I say anyone's name incorrectly. And again, and Jonathan, thank you for also indicating who you are here representing. So if anybody is here to represent an organization or a municipality, if you could let us know that as well. Keith Barrow.
Yep, good afternoon. Keith Barrow with Northwest Natural.
Great, welcome. Did I see Alyssa Buzz? Sean Blair?
Yeah, I'm Sean Blair with the City of Gresham, building official. Thank you.
Great, welcome. Eric Bressman?
Yes, hi, Eric Bressman. I'm an architect with Anchor Moisen in Portland.
Great, welcome. Ines Kurland?
Hi, Ines Carlin with Deschutes County in CDD as an IT.
Great, welcome. Harmony Drake?
Sorry, I didn't have my mic ready. Hi, I'm with City of Milwaukee. I'm a permit technician.
Great, welcome. Lacey Garrett?
Hi, I'm Lacey Garrett with Northwest Natural, and I help support and distribute green tags for Northwest Natural. Thank you.
Great, thank you and welcome. Lisa Gill?
Hi, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Lisa Gill with the City of Portland. I'm in the office, so I have my mask on, so if you can't hear me, sorry.
We can hear you well, thank you. Travis McLeod?
Travis McLeod. I'm a field foreman electrician for a contractor in Eastern Oregon.
Welcome. Rebai Tamerhol?
I'm Ravi Tamahulat. I'm representing Building and Safety, City of Salem.
Great, welcome. Katrina Whiteman? Okay, and I know that I missed some folks as they came in. Oh, I see Samantha Vandergriff. Samantha Grant Vandergriff.
Hi, I'm Samantha, and I'm with City of Milwaukee. I'm the building official.
Great, welcome. So I know I missed quite a few folks. If your last name starts with A through E, if you want to speak up if I did not call your name yet.
Brett Cook, Jackson County.
Hi, Kirsten Adams,
welcome.
Associated General Contractors.
Welcome.
Lauren Bowling with National Electrical Contractors and Associated Wall and Ceiling Contractors.
Great, welcome. If your last name starts with F through M as in Mary, and I did not call your name, if you want to introduce yourself.
Daryl Fuller with the Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling Contractors Association.
John Frankel, Northwest Natural.
Brian Krieg, representing the contractors of the Sheet Metal Air Conditioning Contractors National Association and the Plumbing and Mechanical Contractors Association, also IBEW electricians, the plumbers of UA 290, and Sheet Metal Workers Local 16.
Welcome.
I'm Angie Havner with Administrative Manager of Deschutes County.
Welcome. Okay, if your last name is N through T as in Tom, if you want to introduce yourself.
Holly Sullivan with Focus Point Communications.
Welcome.
I'm Matt Roselle with Oregon Building Officials Association. I'm the building official for Clackamas County.
Welcome. Okay, and then the rest of the alphabet, or if you missed the window before, anybody else that I have not, who has not yet had an opportunity to introduce themselves and may be participating today.
Michael Van Dyke, representing the Oregon Building Officials Association.
Welcome.
Mark Whitmell, building official in Eugene.
Welcome. Excellent. Well, I think we captured most everybody here. I appreciate everybody introducing themselves. I am going to turn it over to Tyler to give some additional background. Tyler, your mic, when you introduced yourself, was a little bit shaky. So let's see if it's, you want to say hello one more time? We'll see if it's working. Otherwise, I can capture the next piece of the background here.
Sorry about that. Hello again. Can everyone hear me all right?
You're still a little shaky. Maybe you want to try logging out and hopping back in and see if that might fix it, or doing a phone call in.
So.
Okay. I will go ahead and start with the background here. So I'm going to go through on the agenda at the start of it, provide some additional background on why we're here today and some things that we're looking at. So I'm going to give a recap for folks who may not be familiar with the process or may not have had a chance to look through the agenda yet. House Bill 2415 recently passed the Oregon legislature, and it was signed into law by the governor. It took effect at the end of September, but there's some portions of the bill that do not become operative until the start of 2025. A copy of the enrolled bill is included in the packet of information. It is going to create, the bill creates minimum standards and more statewide consistency for electronic processes for reviewing plans, issuing permits, and performing field inspections. In addition, by the year 2025, all municipalities that administer and enforce a building inspection program will be required to use the division's electronic system or an equivalent system for certain information and services. That system will include, but need not be limited to, a whole host of items. There's 10 items here listed that are in the bill: licensing, permitting, inspections, other relevant information, accessing forms, electronic submission of and payment of permit applications, electronic submission of plans for review, electronic receipt of plan approvals and permits, electronic issuance of minor labor or other appropriate permits, access to permit and inspection processes, receiving requests for and scheduling inspections, tracking of corrections and granting of approvals, performance of electronic field inspections, construction progress inspections, and on-site verification of compliance with building code requirements, and the coordination and tracking of construction-related services. Regardless of whether the municipality uses their own system or the division system, any municipality that administers and enforces a building inspection program will be required to meet the minimum standards that are adopted by the division. We anticipate ongoing discussions with stakeholders, as I mentioned at the beginning, to assist with the rulemaking and develop these systems. We would like to survey municipalities to identify what their current electronic processes are. We'd like to update rules about delivery of information to refer to current communication methods. The survey of information and input from the committee can help us identify current barriers for electronic processes, as well as solutions to eliminate the barriers. The survey and input will also assist the division in identifying minimum standards and statewide consistency for the processes. And then as we create the system, we plan to seek input about the scope and requirements for equivalency. So we do hope that you will be part of, as I mentioned earlier, the ongoing discussions and the work groups to assist in the implementation of the bill. For this meeting, our goal is to obtain input on the survey for municipalities and to discuss whether there are potentially outdated means of communication in our rules. So I am going to get started on issue 1, which really focuses on the survey that we intend to send out to municipalities to try to obtain more information about what electronic systems jurisdictions are currently using, if there's limitations with that, and trying to get this information to assist in the creation of that statewide consistency and the required statewide system. So in the packet of information is a draft of the survey that we plan to send out to all municipalities that administer and enforce building inspection programs, and want to hear feedback from the Rulemaking Advisory Committee about the survey. So I'm going to scroll to the survey itself. And Laura and Melissa, I know we didn't I didn't mention this earlier. I don't know if it's possible for you to share the screen of the survey. If you can, that would be helpful. If not, again, folks, so there's a link to the document for the website as well. But the survey, we broke it into sections to go through some questions about plan review, questions about permitting, questions about inspections, data integrations, and barriers. And so I'm going to start with the plan review section and give an overview to the committee about what questions we intend to ask municipalities about plan review, and then I'll open it up for discussion. It's been a lot of me talking. Open it up to discussion about feedback for what questions would be helpful to pose to municipalities about plan review, and any feedback that folks have about sending a survey in general as well. So the questions we have about plan review, thank you very much, Laura or Melissa, whoever worked their magic to get this up on the screen. So the first question we have is, do you have an electronic system that is capable of accepting electronic plans? And this would allow us to understand what municipalities' capabilities are currently for the electronic plans. And if yes, whether they are currently accepting them. And if no, describing any current barriers to accepting electronic plans. Second question in this category is, do you have an electronic system capable of reviewing plans electronically? And if yes, whether they are reviewing those plans electronically, what software they're using, and if other departments aside from the building department participate in the electronic review process. And then if no, identifying any barriers that would prohibit them from reviewing plans electronically. And if they do not have a system capable of reviewing plans electronically, then trying to understand any barriers that are in place that are preventing them from doing that. And then the last question in this category is whether municipalities are communicating with customers about the status of their plans electronically and how they're doing that. Is it by email? Is it by software application? Which application? If they're not doing it, what barriers are in place that might prohibit them from having that communication currently? So with that, I am going to open it up to feedback again, just on these plan review questions, and also any feedback that folks have about just if there's any general comments in regards to sending out this survey as we go along. And if people want to use that raise hand function, if they are able, that would be great. Jonathan Balkima.
So looking at it, I had a couple thoughts in there. One thing that might be beneficial in the plan review section is asking in there what format they're currently using in that section too. I think there was somewhere else in there we were talking about format, but in the actual plan review section, what format of the documents, PDF, those sorts of things. And then it throughout, so I won't repeat myself throughout, but throughout I thought it might be good to add in there something in the format. Obviously it would change from each section, but are you in the process of purchasing or developing that? Because there's going to be a lot of entities that have been starting that process. So we might catch some people midstream there. And then yeah, that was pretty much it in that section. And and then up at the top where it's generically just electronic system, you might clarify that because there's plenty of people that still think fax is an electronic system.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. Any additional comments in regards to this section of the survey? Yes, Samantha.
So how are you planning on distributing this survey?
That's a great question. I believe, Selena, do you want to speak to the plans for distribution?
I think that was actually one of the questions we were going to throw out to the group, was whether we could actually maybe have some assistance from OBOA to get this out and get the word out to different jurisdictions about the survey.
Yeah, I think this is Alana, just to kind of, our baseline tool, we have a list of all the building officials in Oregon, an email list that we would blast it out to, but we recognize that's probably not sufficient to get the kind of response we want. So we're looking for other ideas and tools for getting participation, and we're hoping for some OBOA help there as well. I see Michael volunteering, right?
Yeah, we'd be happy to. We've done a survey similar to this in the past, so I think that it'd be something that we could easily follow up on with our membership.
Thank you. Samantha, did you have your hand still raised?
I do. I just was going to say, along with the building officials, I know my permit tech is my gatekeeper. So if you send it along to the permit techs and have them bird dog the building officials, you might have a little bit more response, because I think the permit techs are also going to have a highly invested interest in this process.
Great. Any additional feedback about rolling out the survey as well as this plan review section? Yes, Selena.
Just to kind of follow up on what Samantha just said about the permit techs, I was just curious if anybody knows if the Oregon Permit Tech Association has been meeting. I haven't heard much from them of late.
This is Samantha, sorry. I saw a email come out not too long ago about them having their annual conference online or on Zoom or something. So, and I think that was within the last month. So I know they're still doing some, I just don't know how much.
Samantha, if there's any chance of forwarding that information to me, this is Selena, that'd be great, because that would be an excellent venue to get the survey out to as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other comments before we move on to the next section?
I think we can also send it to, they have tri-county meetings, and also we have Mid-Valley building official in Salem every month. So are more, in a small group, you can get the information.
Julia, this is Craig Stevenson, International Code Council. Will you be willing to accept outside help with distributing the request to complete the inventory questionnaire?
Hi, I will defer that question to Selena to answer.
When you say outside help, are you meaning outside help encouraging local jurisdictions in Oregon to answer the questionnaire, or are you talking about outside of the state?
I'm talking help delivered to you outside of BCD and requesting that Oregon jurisdictions respond to the questionnaire. Keeping it slowly to only seeking Oregon jurisdictions to the questionnaire.
I think that would be helpful. This is Alana. Yeah, Craig, if you're willing to help kind of contact your folks as well, I think the more people we can get it to, the more people we might get to respond. So that'd be great.
That's the thing we do know about questionnaires, is that it's hard to get people to respond. And this information in the context of what the legislature expects is obviously time sensitive and things need to move along. So thank you.
Thank you for volunteering some help. Appreciate it. Additional comments or questions on this part? Okay. I'm going to give Tyler a chance to check his mic again and see how it's working before we move on to the permitting section.
Can you all hear me?
I think it might still be a little shaky. Why don't you try one more time?
I apologize. I'm doing my best. Can you all hear me?
Nope.
We can hear you if you want to participate, but I can take over the running through because it's still a little shaky. So, but we can make you out if you need to chime in anywhere. So I'll go ahead and take the permitting section. Our lovely technological barriers these time as we talk about all our technological advancements. So, so permitting. For the questionnaire, I'm going to run through the questions as a group here, and then I'll open it up for discussion and feedback. So the questions we intend to pose here. Do you have an electronic database for tracking permit data? Is that database searchable by the public? What is the software that you use with that database? Can your customers apply for permits online? And if they can apply for permits, can they apply for all permits? And if not, what permits can they apply for? Can customers pay for permits online? And if yes, what online payment processor are they using? Can customers upload plans or other documents to their online permit applications? And can customers see the status of their permit online? So with that, I will open it up for discussion and feedback on this section. Yes, Eric.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the correct place to ask the question, but I'm wondering if the issue of completed permits that are closed out, would be part of this as searchable either by the public or by the actual end user that applied for the permit, so they can see when it's been closed out. Because archiving, that seems to be kind of falls off the table at the end of the project.
Selena, do you have feedback or thoughts on that comment?
No, I'm assuming that, Eric, that you mean by that just like closed permits for their records, like for realtors searching after the fact to make sure that a structure has all of the required permits. Are you also talking about plans? Yeah. Okay.
Actually, both. As an architect, we quite often will be looking at permit history for a building and trying to retrieve those documents that were submitted so we can sort of garner information about construction type, occupancy groups, that type of thing of those existing buildings.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Jonathan.
So actually, again, it goes with Eric's thing. So in bullet 2, might be good to clarify what data set you guys are actually wanting to know about, because we take in a lot of data in the intake of plans and stuff like that, and not always all of it is exposed and searchable to the public. Some of that would be internal only type information that may show that there was a permit for the building, but like for Eric's question, wanting occupancy and stuff like that, it may not be exposed. So if that's part of the desired information, that might be better to express what data set you're actually looking for. And then in 4, similar to above, I would pose the question of, are you planning to make all permits available? If not, type thing, because again, as jurisdictions that are moving along, we may be still making those progressions.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Additional comments?
I just have a comment about the archive. I think that there are some issues you know, you go from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, the access to the record, you know, through a record request, sometimes is the only way to do it. And I've been here for about 10 years trying to make it accessible to public. I'm still working on it. So it depends on how the legal in the jurisdiction, you know, interpret the law of the access record. It's kind of not an easy solution.
Yeah, definitely. Selena?
Rebecca, are you talking about like plans and the copyright nature of plans and that as a barrier to show it having those available online except to the people who submitted them? Or are you talking about like the length of time that you're supposed to keep a permit document?
I think it's, you know, the issue like was raised by the architect. I think it should be easy access to the, you know, the archive to determine, you know, the type of occupancy, how the building was built. But the problem is, you know, that you'll find some, you know, legal interpretation that it's not easy to have access. So you have to go through record requests. You have to request it, then we will provide it. I am in the opinion of making that record accessible by anybody, as long as they sign a waiver saying they are not going for, you know, use it for commercial, just for the information. It should be accessible by everybody.
Thank you. Jonathan?
I'm going through the same heartache as Rebuy, and some of the pushback that we got originally was, you know, we use Laserfish as our archive, and when they configured it, they didn't separate out police from the regular city's archive. So unfortunately, they couldn't get CGIS accreditation with it configured that way. So they've had to spend the last few years basically making two systems and stuff like that. So quite often there are those challenges on exposing the true archive to that. And then one of the newest ones the IT has brought up even on our changing between software for our electronic plan review is, I guess there's a bigger IT threat nowadays of people uploading information, knowing that it will be exposed to the public and being able to disseminate inadvertently while we're in the process of doing things. So IT's usually ends up becoming a roadblock for some of the giving of information, even outside of the copyright concerns that we might have for IP.
Very good. Thank you for that feedback. Additional comments? Okay, I'm going to move over to inspections. Laura or Melissa, if you could bring up that question form again so people can follow along. So for inspections, we have questions. What forms of inspections scheduling does your jurisdiction use? And then providing some options for people to choose. Inspection voicemail line, automated phone scheduling, online inspection scheduling, scheduling app, text scheduling, or something else, and asking for them to describe that. Next question, how do customers get their inspection results? And that could be paper, email, online, fax, automated voice report, or something else, again, asking for them to describe that. Third question, what inspection technology do your inspectors use? And it could be none, a mobile app, and then asking if the mobile app has an offline mode when there's no self-service, a laptop, or something else, and asking for that to be described. And then does your jurisdiction do video inspection? If yes, which products are they using to perform those inspections? If no, describing any concerns they have with providing video inspections in the future. So feedback and comments on this inspection section. Yes, Jonathan.
For number 4, for the video inspections, it may be good to ask if they archive the video, especially since that's what our decision's made off of. So record retention for at least the minimum of the year. And then if so, what software are they using? So that way we can have some record of that.
Great. Thank you. Other thoughts or comments on this section? All right, seeing none, I'm going to move over to data. And Laura or Melissa, if you could pop up that question list again. So there's 2 questions here. Do you currently publish your building department data, for example, on the website? And how do you assemble or query your data in response to a public records request? I will pause there and see if there's feedback on these questions. Yes, Jonathan.
I would expand website out to include subscription services or other data services. I know we are at times get picked up by a couple service providers that want us to publish our data out there for open source type stuff. So it might be good to include that. And then I would possibly suggest clarifying what building permit data you're actually asking for. So if it's just number of permits, valuation, those sorts of things, what data set we're looking at, because I've worked in a couple of different jurisdictions, and we'll expose some things and we'll report on a couple things, but not a lot of information. So
very good, thank you. Other feedback? Yes. Can you remind me how to say your name again? Is it Enos? Anybody else for this one?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I hit unmute.
Okay.
So this is actually for inspections under question 1. Instead of online inspection scheduling, maybe browser inspection scheduling, because I can see some people getting confused with that language.
Very good, thank you. Other feedback? All right, we're going to hop on back to the question list, and we are on integrations. So does your building database integrate with your planning department database? Does your building database integrate with your financial accounting software? And if yes, which financial or accounting software is used? And then do you have a document management system? And if yes, is that integrated into your building database? Feedback on these pieces. Yes, Jonathan.
For number 2, not sure if the intent is this, but you might ask if the document management system is the archival system, or phrase it differently if that's the intent of that, to determine if the plan review software documents that we have are the same as our archive, or however.
Excellent. Thank you. Additional comments? Okay, and then our last category on this survey is barriers. And there's just one question here. What processes and technologies do you feel are barriers to a fully electronic process in your jurisdiction? And then providing jurisdictions an opportunity to articulate that. So any additional comments on either the barriers section or the survey as a whole, since we're on our last question here for the survey? Yes, is it Enos?
Enos, yeah.
Enos, okay.
So a giant barrier would actually be with the end user. So I think a good question we should ask is, what resources do you have to help people transition from paper to electronic? And maybe that's more of a public user end question, but our biggest barrier is dealing with, or helping out those that are applying online and trying to log in and et cetera.
Great, thank you for that feedback. Selena.
Yeah, Ines, I think that's a great point, and maybe we should break the barriers down into a couple of different categories, like technological barriers. Rebay had mentioned like legal barriers, and then also resource barriers, and then customer barriers. So maybe we should kind of make that question a little bit more granular.
Yes, Jonathan?
And in that area, you might consider even asking about access to high-speed internet and stuff like that, because, while the populace lives in the developed areas, geographically, the state's still hit or miss on, do we have high-speed internet that's capable for jurisdictions? Because you're in what we used to refer as high-speed internet may not work great for doing those sorts of uploads and stuff anymore.
Great, thank you. Additional thoughts on this one? All right, I'm gonna scroll back to the front of my agenda here and that was issue 1 is going through the survey. And yes, Eric.
Yeah, I was just curious. This survey is focused on the various jurisdictions across the state and how this would affect them. I'm wondering if there was any thought given to surveying both the contracting and the designers in the state to get their input on this.
Thank you. Yes, it's a great question. We have thought about surveying contractors and additional, people who are using the system to get additional feedback. So that is actually one of the items on our list for future meetings, to go through a survey that would be pursued against the contractors and other folks in the industry. But that is a great flag there. Tyler.
Hi, Julia. If there are no other comments on this issue, I'm happy to take issue 2.
Oh, great. You sound very clear. I think you solved your issue.
I have made an end run around the system and called in with my phone, so hopefully everyone can hear me clearly. Do we have any other comments on issue 1? I will take that as a no, and we will move on to issue 2 on our agenda. And this larger section of issues is a discussion of potentially outdated means of communication. And first and foremost, issue number 2 is the removal of the telegram requirement. And for the purposes of discussion, the administrative rules require certain requests for plumbing and electrical inspections to be in writing. Written requests are described as including a letter, telegram, or fax transmittal. So the division is basically seeking feedback from the committee on whether the administrative rules should be updated to remove all references to telegrams, given I am not certain that we have telegrams available anymore, but that is the question we're asking here today, and we would like your feedback. And Jonathan Balkema.
I'm going to say yes. Let's remove that. I would probably suggest future proofing it for writing electronic requests or other methods approved by the division, the jurisdiction, however you guys want to work that one. So that way it's kind of future proofed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So anyone else who wishes to weigh in on the issue of whether or not telegrams, references to telegrams should be removed, but in the rules?
I guess nobody thinks the telegram's making that come.
This is Daryl with CC. I'm just wondering if it shouldn't just be narrowed to just written communication and leave it at that. I mean, because who knows what is coming and what is going, rather than constantly adjusting to technology. Just, I mean, at some point it's going to be written because we have to keep records of it. Although we're talking about keeping video as well, and how much we're keeping a hold of video, but on both of those items, rather than removing them, why don't we just streamline it to say written and leave it at that? But I'm open to whatever.
Thank you, Daryl, for that comment. And Jonathan, did you have another comment?
I would just be cautious of saying written only, because that would preclude IVRs and stuff, because that's no longer a written communication. So if we're going to twist the rule, we need to make it sure it's inclusive of various technologies, not limit us to in writing only necessarily.
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak on this topic? All right, thank you so much. And Julia, would you like me to take issue 3 as well?
Sure, let's have you do issue 3. That sounds great.
All right, you did all the heavy lifting up front. I'm happy to take issue 3. So next on the issue, the larger umbrella of issues of potentially outdated means of communication is issue number 3 on your agenda, which is the removal of facsimile machine requirements for permit applications. So OAR 918-020-00902F requires a building inspection program to provide a means to receive permit applications via facsimile, also known as fax. Generally speaking, the use of facsimiles declined with the availability of computerized electronic systems. The division would like feedback on whether transmission by fax is used frequently, and whether the rules should remove the requirement for a building inspection program to have fax machines to receive permit applications. So some of the options that the division is sort of laying out to see what folks have comments on are discussing the frequency of fax machine use in the industry and whether transmission of information via fax continues to be useful, or eliminating a building program's need to receive information via fax. Alternatively, we could phase out building programs' needs to receive information via fax, including an end date for fax submissions, or any other suggestions that the committee may have. So I will open it up to the floor. Does anyone wish to comment on this issue? Jonathan?
So this one's kind of sad because it works both ways. So unfortunately, we use fax every single month. Every time I have to send you guys the 12% money, because I have to fax over the credit card payment unless I want to have a check run. So if BCD ditches the fax any other way, can we update that too? So that way we don't have to do a check run or a secure fax. In the context of the customers, really, we don't see faxes that often. I think we have 1 customer, 2 customers that would prefer a fax. So I can see it sunsetting out. My suggestion would be actually just tailor it into the termination or the implementation date of the electronic rule that got passed by the statute for 2025. You could really just phase it out with the new, we're supposedly having an online system, and then you could update the rule to be electronic communication or software. So that way we can have a future proof type scenario.
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. And Lisa Gill?
Hi, I'm Lisa Gill with the City of Portland, and we find that there are people who still tend to fax us. Some of them are of a different generation. And so keeping that in mind, if there were to be any phase out, maybe we could, kind of get to that point. But a lot of people that we see using faxes, that is their kind of baby step into technology. So I think that if we could phase it out and have an end date, that would be okay eventually.
I appreciate the comments. And next up is Samantha Vandergriff.
So if I'm understanding right, we're going to phase out the wording, but not necessarily, we don't have to discontinue the use if we have people still using it, correct?
So this is just generally putting it out to the committee to see what their takes on the issue are. But the question being asked in general by the division here is whether or not that it should be eliminated entirely as a means to receive permit applications, whether or not that requirement should be in there, given that the use of fax machines have declined but clearly have not been eliminated entirely, or whether that should be phased out, for example, including an end date for faxes to be submitted, or eliminating the need to receive information via faxes, thus giving the opportunity for some to keep it and some to not, or any other alternative that the committee can come up with.
Right. So the terminology would phase out. It would no longer be. I would no longer be required by law to keep a fax machine, but that doesn't mean that I would not still be able to provide that technology if I had customers that still wanted to use it.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And Selena, did you wish to weigh in on that as well?
That was what I was going to say. It's not going to preclude anybody from accepting a fax if you want to, but several jurisdictions have asked if they still must have the fax machine, and this would change that. You wouldn't be required to.
Samantha, did you have anything else on that, or did that answer your question?
Answered. Thank you.
Excellent. Does anyone else wish to comment on this issue? Selena?
I would just ask if any of the contractors who are participating have any, if anybody's membership, if there's a thought that there would be contractors or businesses that would object to not being able to submit via fax.
This is Chris Carpenter. Sorry for coming in a little bit late today. I work with the sheet metal contractors and the plumbing and mechanical contractors. I don't have a super good read on how many of our folks. That's something we kind of have to put out to them in terms of, the, I guess, prevalence of, fax machines throughout. So I'd have to put that out to them a little bit.
Selena, go ahead.
And maybe that's something we should think about in a survey for the contractors and for the users is, what types of technology do they feel they need for communicating with local jurisdiction around permitting issues?
Do we have people using fax now? I haven't seen fax since, I don't know.
I know there are some jurisdictions who have customers who still are pretty routinely, I think even our offices still get faxes from certain contractors.
Wow.
All right. Do we have anyone else who wishes to comment on this issue?
This is Matt Rizal. I was just going to say we still receive faxes from customers. It's not a very large population of people that still use it, but we do, like Lisa was saying, get the older generations that still rely on those.
All right. Well, thank you all for your contributions on that issue. I think, Julie, we should maybe move on to the next.
Yep, that sounds great. So issue 4 is divided into 2 pieces. Overall, we're looking at this issue is really about what should we be talking about at our future meetings. There's some big topics in here, and we're trying to identify key issues that we want to hone in on at future meetings. So 4.1 is identifying barriers and creating consistency. By January 1, again, of 2025, all municipalities that administer and enforce a building inspection program will be using either our system or their own equivalent one. And they will also be following the minimum standards that are identified in rule related to electronic processes for reviewing plans, issuing permits, and performing field inspections. To get every jurisdiction to that point, the division will be continuing discussions to understand any barriers that exist related to obtaining consistent electronic methods. The division will also explore ways to create consistency between municipalities to assist with the implementation of the bill. In the agenda, we have several topics that will likely be discussed at future meetings. Melissa or Laura, if you're able to bring up issue 4.1 on the screen, it's on the agenda. That could help just as I run through each of these items. So we've got, first topic is signatures. Looking at when signatures are required in the rules, the use of electronic signatures, and the type of electronic signatures that would be appropriate. The next issue we identified is the format for electronic review. And so the format for submitting electronic documents, this was touched on earlier. For example, should they be in PDF or some other format? Third topic is scanning capabilities for contractors and homeowners. So as electronic plan processes become more common, contractors and homeowners will begin using these processes more frequently. And we intend to discuss whether there are current barriers, such as scanning capabilities, training needs, and other things that would need to be overcome to assist people when submitting information electronically. Fourth area is electronic plans, so whether they should be accepted statewide, and if they are accepted statewide, whether electronic markups of the plan should occur statewide, and then any security or encryption concerns that would be related to approved plans. Next is electronic field inspections. What does that term mean? That is a term that is in the bill and can be further defined. So how should that be further defined in terms of implementation? Next topic is standardizing terminology. As municipalities move towards using similar or identical electronic systems, there is value added through identical naming conventions. This creates additional consistency for contractors throughout the state, and it assists with reviewing data and discussions amongst experts. So whether there should be that standardization and what that should look like. Next topic is paper copies. When hard copies of documents should be required, which includes whether written copies of inspection reports should be left on site, which we have a rule that applies to that, and part of the ORSC that would apply. And that is the full list. So the options are to identify if there's additional issues that folks feel like we should consider beyond what I just discussed related to implementing House Bill 2415. So we don't have to solve each of these right now, but these are ideas that we would like to discuss at future meetings. So do folks have additional ideas they think should be on that list? And if there's recommendations on ways to further explore those barriers and create the consistency that's identified. So ideas we had would be to do a work group on topics or to gather certain data, which we partially discussed by way of the survey. And if folks have other ideas on how we can explore each of these issues. So Let me first start by asking if folks have identified or can think of any additional issues they think should be on this list as we move towards implementation. Samantha.
So I have a question about your standardized naming conventions. How is that going to work when multiple jurisdictions already have plan review or electronic software in place? Are they going to be required to rename everything they've already done? Or is that one of the topics we can put on to discuss?
Yeah, I think that would be what would be discussed, is should that happen, is question number one. And if it should happen, what should be standardized? Which terms should be standardized, and what is that naming convention that should be used? So I think that's one of the issues is considering if that's something that should be explored and what that would look like.
Okay, thanks.
Selena, before I get to Jonathan, Selena, did you have further comment on that one?
Well, other things besides like electronic plan review might be things like RD&E permitting. We standardize some of the names of like fixtures for plumbing fees and electrical and mechanical, or names of inspections. And that might be useful. I mean, one of the things, people are talking about is how quickly technology changes and the need sometimes to be able to pivot between electronic systems, and that kind of standardization of naming might be helpful to all jurisdictions, just for the ability to be nimble in the face of different types of technology coming down the road. So, but again, an item for discussion, for future discussion potentially.
Jonathan.
So for some of the bullets that you have, I think it would be important for the future ones to have already reached out or include other entities, because like signatures won't be just our rules. It will also be impacts of like OSBIL and those, because there are specific rules for verifiable signatures. That's one that we still run into problems with, because they may have restrictions on their signature, which prevents us from actually doing our electronic combining of the plans and those sorts of things. We've had them where unfortunately you couldn't even put on your approved stamp, versus, other ones you can't combine it into an approved document if that's what you do as an organization. So working with our other government partners to make sure that we can all somewhat play nice would be great. And then, in the paper copies thing, I know the examples you guys used was more the references where rules saying we have to, but I think one of the positive sells to the customer is, the customer services this brings. So is one of the things that we want to consider is, we're not going to require hard copies in the field anymore. Or the inspector's going to be, utilizing technology, leveraging technology to have the approved plans with them. So that way we're not doing as many no plans on site type situations, those sorts of things. So where's the end goal that BCD and the industry wants? So I think that's the big ones.
I think I would add also a hard copy of inspections is really not needed anymore, because the customer has access to the data and they can see the result of inspection right away, or they can receive it as an email. I mean, if we are going digital, let's make it, let's fix the rules, the old rules, and use a digital result. Most of the hard copy you leave on site, sometimes, they will not find them. I mean, in
Thank you.
City of Salem, we really don't leave any hard copy, because the result is they can access the result of the inspection right away, and they receive it as an email.
Thank you for that. Lacey.
I'm not sure exactly where this fits in at, but just trying to figure out how the communication is going to be communicated to the utilities after a final inspection has been made for us, like a meter set, turn-ons, things of that nature. So just trying to understand that whole process.
Very good. Good plug. Ines?
Hi. So I guess a big concern for Deschutes County and BCD already knows that we're part of the e-permitting system is more and more people or jurisdictions are going to join e-permitting, I assume, and the standard model is going to be restricted to changes as the standard model kind of, encompasses all of Oregon. So the more and more jurisdictions we join, I feel like there's going to be less, changes happening because we have to go through all the approval processes. So that's a concern for Deschutes County, but not saying that it's now, it's just like down the road kind of thing that we're looking out for.
Very good. Thank you for that. Additional comments on these topics and issues for consideration moving forward? Yes, Eric.
I'm not sure if this falls under the format for the electronic review or not, but we submit digital copies for permits to several of the jurisdictions we work with currently, and have found that we're asked to revise the graphic format sometimes of our plans so that there's a designated space for the jurisdiction's stamp to go on it, their approval stamp. And that's inconsistent where that's located. And many times it causes us to have to go in and modify our title block on the drawings for that particular project. And so consistency of graphic formatting I don't know exactly which one of these headings that would fit under, but if there's any way to achieve that, it would definitely be helpful from our side.
Excellent. That's a good flag. Other comments? The second part of this question was also providing recommendations on ways to further explore these barriers to create the consistency. And we identified work groups, the gathering of data through surveys, and other ways to reach out. Any other additional comments on outreach and how to pursue solutions to these various issues? I'm not seeing any, so I am going to turn it over to Tyler for our final issue of the day here.
Thank you, Julia. All right, so if we take a look at issue number 4 here, or excuse me, not 4. I apologize. We are on issue number
4.2, other recommendations under section 1. Yep.
For whatever reason, this screen was not loading. Issue 4.2 would be other recommendations under section 1 of the bill. As stated above, section 1 of the bill requires us to adopt rules to establish minimum standards and statewide consistency in electronic processes for reviewing plans, issuing permits, and performing field inspections. The division is interested in hearing any other suggestions related to these minimum standards that the committee has. The option provided, for example, is provide additional suggestions for minimum standards and statewide consistency in these processes for reviewing plans, issuing permits, and performing field inspections. So this is sort of a catch-all topic to gather any other suggestions that you have under these frameworks. So anyone who wishes to comment on these issues would be greatly appreciated.
Selena?
I actually was, sorry, to going back to the previous section, we listed out a bunch of kind of topics there. It was mentioned that, something like electronic signatures, we would want to engage other governmental entities. Are there a couple of those that people think might be the most important, are the bigger barriers that maybe we should be tackling first? And whether we think a work group, like for something like electronic signatures or hard copies of inspection reports, again, is there any kind of priority that you see in terms of ordering of tackling those things?
Matt Rizal.
I was just going to suggest like a user group, that we could get together and get a variety of different products that people use. For instance, Acela, Project Docs, InterGov, where we can talk throughout the users and kind of get some consistency that way, because those different products they vary a lot in the way that they're used. So I think that might be helpful in gaining that consistency.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment.
I have another suggestion is, I think we have a few jurisdictions that they are fully digital right now. And I think if Building and Codes Division can take a look at this jurisdiction to determine the minimum requirement. We've been digital since April 2019, and we believe that we comply with all the minimum standards for the bill. But there are more other jurisdictions. I think Albany, are you fully digital?
Yeah, we've been fully digital since the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, and now Hillsborough fully digital. Bend. I don't know about Gresham, but I think it's a suggestion that have some people visit this jurisdiction and see what they are right now providing as a digital submittal on the permit. I think we are, we don't see any paper at all, whether it's for a permit or for a plan review or inspections.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak on this issue? Selena, go ahead.
When we're saying fully digital, that means that absolutely everybody does every step of the process. The customers do that from beginning to end. And if so, have you had pushback from any customers about doing things from beginning to end digitally?
When we started the program, we shared our objective with our stakeholder, and we went from October 2018, we said, to April 2019, and we provided scanners in the office, and for somebody that doesn't have access to a scanner or homeowner. But I think after the period of time, and followed by probably about 6 months, and suddenly we don't have any problem at all. Nobody came in and asked for any help. People get all. Once in a while we get a homeowner, and we will help them scan, whether it's a small set of drawings or 8 by 11, 11 by 17, or bigger. but we haven't seen any problem at all since then.
Yeah, Selena, I'll echo what Levi said. Obviously you get some challenges as you get through. We brought our full process forward about 8 months, 7 months because of the pandemic. But for the most part, we had planned to do July 1st of 2020 anyway. And you still get those customers that would prefer to use the fax machine or those sorts of things that, they want to drop off paper. They still want to have that interaction. So I think there ends up being those concerns that customers have is we lose some of the face time that we get with our customers in the more all digital process. So I think that's the part that we actually end up seeing more, using your word, pushback for it, less for the customers. We have 3 large mechanical contractors that we do a lot of stuff with, and they love the all electronic version. It saves them tons of time, tons of money for being able to do things at all random times of hours. So it has been, well received for the most part. Obviously, things are, each individual person is different. But I think even in what the process that you guys are going down and discussing, it's making sure that the end goal sets up processes that us as jurisdictions can do that allows flexibility for us to continue being flexible for our customers, working with our customers, and making sure we still have that customer service. One of the concerns that I saw off of the 4.1 section was the standardized naming technology. This is now the second jurisdiction that we've went basically all digital for. And, the first jurisdiction, it was, we have to have this populated standardized thing. And during our completeness review, we'll kick out the plans because they didn't name it the way we wanted to by saying architectural and then A1, 2, 3, 4. They did A1, 2, 3, 4 architectural. So therefore it's not meeting our standards. So let's send it packing. We are here at the city taking a more open approach to it in the context of, as long as we can determine that's the site plan versus the civil plans versus the structural plans, and not sending it back to the customer where it seems that we're being overly restrictive. That's one of the key ones, is to make sure that when we're setting up these expectations that we're going to all be abiding by, we keep it flexible enough that we can respond to our customers how they want to be dealt with.
Thank you very much for those comments. Do we have anyone else who wishes to comment on this final issue? Angie?
Hi, I was just wondering, for those of you who have already gone electronic, I think I did hear City of Salem is no longer requiring paper plans on site, if that was correct. And then, so for those of you who have done it, are you requiring paper plans to be printed on site? And are you having issues with customers being able to download those plans if it's a different applicant? So kind of a two-part question.
Samantha.
So we've been fully digital since 2014. So you're all are lagging behind. But we require paper plans on site only because when we get out on site, our iPads are very small to be able to do a full size, especially a commercial review. We haven't had any problems with people being able to download we're on Acela with the state. So we haven't had any problems with people being able to download. They can go to Kinko's, they can go to any of those copy places and they'll download it and print it for them right there. So we haven't had any of those type of issues. And we do electronic I do emails for inspection like Rebuy does. The only time I've ran into problems is we have some elderly folks who are not maybe email savvy, and then we will actually offer to mail them a hard copy so that we take care of any type of accessibility issues or that type of thing in that manner, as we will offer to email or hard snail mail a copy. But we do require the hard plans on site just for readability issues.
So for Albany, we're fairly similar to Samantha for the large commercial projects where they have fixed job sites, trailers, if they have the technology available, where, they bring in, the large screen TVs and do digital files that way, we're happy to accommodate and use that. We're currently in the process of moving away from project docs to a more simplified integrated system through Acela for our customers. And with that process, long-term, by the timeline that we're dealing with here, we'll be migrating over to using iPads for most of the smaller projects and stuff. So we'll not be requiring plans in the field in the future.
Same thing for Salem. Most of the big projects, they have a technology. They don't have any problem. But also our inspectors, they can download the plans, but sometimes it's hard to for a small computer or tablet to see everything. That's why we require paper plans on site for inspection. The result of inspections are, emailed, and they can access the data and find out the result of the inspections.
Thank you for those comments. Is there anyone else who would wish to speak on this issue? I am not seeing anyone. Julia, how would you like to proceed?
Yeah, I will go ahead and close out the meeting here. So this concludes the issues outlined for today's Rulemaking Advisory Committee meeting. And we want to thank each of you for taking the time out of your day, coming to participate in the meeting, offer input, hear what we're looking at, and kind of staying in tune with our implementation of this bill. And over the next few weeks, we are going to be working on finalizing the survey to the municipalities that we discussed today. We're going to put together an agenda for our next meeting, our next Rulemaking Advisory Committee meeting. We hope that you will be, we hope to be in touch with everybody in the near future to give the date and time of that meeting. And we hope that you or someone else from your organization will be able to join us to discuss implementing the bill further. If you are at today's meeting but have not emailed me or the rules coordinator email, it's very possible that we have your email elsewhere. But if you have any doubt that we might not have your contact information, please reach out so that we can make sure to keep you in the loop as this moves forward. I'm going to give you my email address and the rules coordinator email address here. If you have a pen handy. The rules coordinator is rulescoordinator.bcd, as in Building Codes Division, at oregon.gov. Again, rulescoordinator.bcd at oregon.gov. My email is Julia, Julia, .m as in Mary, .hire, HIER, at oregon.gov. If you have trouble, you can always just log on to the BCD webpage, call the number, and let them know you're trying to reach me, and I'm sure that they can get you in touch. But we will keep you advised as this goes forward. And in the meantime, if you also hang up this call and have additional thoughts or advice that you want to provide, you can feel free to email that over as well. Anybody have anything final before I go ahead and say goodbye and thank you all again? Excellent. Well, again, thank you. This has been a very helpful meeting. I really appreciate all of your advice. We'll be keeping you posted and in touch as we move forward. And you guys all have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.